Shalom, WJC family. Time for our weekly Torah Talk. This week we will be reading Parshat Behaalotcha from the book of Bamidbar. And it is a very interesting parsha. It's a little all over the place. If there's a parsha that represents the wandering in the desert more than any other, it is probably this one. The subsequent parshiot that we'll read over the next few weeks each have a story that they really highlight. The story of the spies is coming up, and then the rebellion of Korach, and then the story of Balak and Bilam and Pinchas. Each of them is not only the namesake of their parsha, but most of what the story is about. Behaalotcha is full of a bunch of different vignettes, and its opening is particularly mysterious. It starts out as the people are getting ready to move with a few particular commands about the lampstand, the menorah, the 7-branched candelabra that would stand in the Tabernacle, in the Mishkan, and eventually in the first temple, the Beit HaMikdash. This menorah is very important, although it's a little unclear how it's different from any other lamp. We get a little more insight about it from the Haftarah, which is from the book of Zechariah. Interestingly, is the same Haftarah that we read on Hanukkah, so this connection between this 7-branched menorah and the 9-branched menorah that we use on Hanukkah is already well established by the rabbis. And Zechariah, when he is explaining why this lamp is so special, he says, "Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, said the Lord of hosts. Whoever you are, O great mountain, in the path of Zerubbabel, turn into level ground, for he shall produce that excellent stone. It shall be greeted with shouts of beautiful, beautiful." What does that mean exactly? It seems to mean that the light of the menorah, the light of the lamp, represents somehow God's power in the world and God's ability to even turn great mountains into level ground, here seeming to mean like God sees into the places that are hard to reach. As hard as it is to see at the top of a mountain, for God it's like level ground. Now, how is that represented by a candle, by a lamp? It's an interesting question. And I want to give a few ways that a candle or a lamp is a very special and unique form of light or provider of light, and what that teaches about God and what that teaches us about ourselves. So first of all, a lamp, right? Picture a big hall. You might think that there should be a giant bonfire in the middle of the temple or the middle of the Mishkan. That's, we see that in the movies. But when you have a big fire in the middle of the room, right, it would represent God's power and heat and all these kinds of things. What happens at the edges of the room? What happens in the corners? They remain dark and shadowy. You can't quite see what's going on there. A lamp, on the other hand, can be moved to illuminate the shadows wherever they may be. And so this represents God, that God is interested even in the little particulars. It represents an idea called hashgachat prati, that God cares about you and God cares about me, and God is powerful enough that God can see each and every one of us and cares for each and every one of us. There's another idea about this candle, about the candle representing God's power, and that comes to us from Proverbs 20:27, where we read, "Aner Adonai nishmat Adam." Right, the candle of God is the soul of a person, and that's a really fascinating idea. What does it mean that my neshama, your neshama, inside of you is in fact the candle of God? Somehow we are animated spiritually by the light and the warmth of God. It's beautiful, but we very rarely, that passage is quoted a lot. The second part is quoted a lot less. Chofshi kol cherdei beten, right? Revealing a person's innermost parts, innermost places. Now there's two ways to read that idea. One is a little a little thread, right? God's light is shining inside. God knows our personal lives. God knows our private lives. There's almost something invasive about that idea, but I think there's a much more positive way to read it, which is that the special talents, the gifts that God has placed inside us are revealed by our neshamas, that we know when we're doing the right thing, when we're doing what we're meant to do, because we feel our neshama vibrate, we feel its light and its warmth illuminate us and warm us up when we are on that right path. So that idea of the lamp in the tabernacle or in the Mishkan is reminding us that we are that light. Not only that, but if God's light shines into all the dark places, that we are the ones to carry the light into those dark places. The light's in us. So it's our job to go out and to help with the things that are causing darkness in the world. That's our role. God's given us that gift. The lamp in the tabernacle represents the lamp inside each of us, a light that we can share, teaching, nurturing, and caring, and like a candle, not be diminished at all, right? You light one candle from another candle, it's not diminished, and the light is doubled. That's a miracle. There's very few things in nature, in the world, that are quite like a candle in that way. You light one candle off another candle, the light doubles, and the first candle is undiminished. Remarkable. So too with our neshamas. We touch another person's life. We bring light into their life. Our light is shared. God's light is shared. It's brighter in the world. It's warmer in the world. And we are undiminished. So that's another way in which this candelabra in the tabernacle and later in the Beit HaMikdash is so important. I want to bring one more example of the great gift of the light of the menorah. And that is a quote, one of my favorite quotes of Albert Einstein. So Einstein said that a life lived without wonder is like a snuffed out candle. Right? A person who has no experience of wonder is like a snuffed out candle. Now, this is an interesting thing coming from Albert Einstein, right? Albert Einstein literally figured out the equation that governs the universe, right? The theory of relativity, E equals mc squared. Lots and lots of people know it, even if we don't really understand what it means, right? The most famous scientist, because he was so brilliant and a Jewish person, you might think he would say, what's there to wonder about? I figured it out. No, he says, even having figured that out, still experienced wonder. Right, that a life lived without wonder is like a snuffed out candle. And that menorah represents the light of those candles, represents wonder, represents an approach to the world, to always learn more, to find out more, to illuminate not only dark places, but mysterious ideas, and to see what is beautiful and wondrous in the world, no matter what we might encounter, to never be satisfied with what we know, to never stop asking questions, but to stay on the journey. And it's that neshama, that sense of God in the world, that ability for a lamp to illuminate dark places that can keep us moving forward, that can keep our roads safe and illuminated even as we travel to new and mysterious and dark places and challenge ideas and status quos that may be time to explore anew. And so as we turn to Behaalotcha, as we read in Zechariah about this menorah and what it symbolizes, I wish us all to appreciate our role as the candle of God, to recognize that we can share our light and be undiminished, to recognize that our neshama inside us is illuminating our gifts and our talents, and all we have to do is listen and become attuned to that spiritual self in order to know that we are on the right path. And to remember that we, as long as we keep approaching the world with wonder, as long as we keep approaching the world with the sense to illuminate God, dark places with the light that God has placed inside of us, that we can be a bright burning candle. And to be careful, as Einstein warned, to never be a snuffed out candle, to never let that light go out because of indifference, because of what people say we're supposed to do or we're supposed to be, or because we just have lost the ability to have a sense of wonder. May we all be filled with that sense of our neshama, the light of God, and may we shine that light in all the dark places, helping others, bringing out new ideas, doing what God meant for us to do in the world, and having that sense of hashgachat prati, having that sense of God's interest in our own individual lives. Wish you a Shabbat Shalom.